Hey everyone, welcome to our tutorial video on how to evaluate a website. So we're going to talk about a very important test called the PARC test. And you want to think about the PARC test like as if you were parking a car. Should you park yourself on a particular website? Is this website worthy of your time and your energy while you are reading it? So let's dive right in and check out whether or not we can tell if a website is valid. So, should I park myself on a website? The PARC test can be used to determine whether or not you can trust a website as a reliable source. If it passes, you can park yourself on that website. As we go through this, you're actually going to answer some questions that we are going to post up in this video instead of taking guided notes. So first, let's talk about the P in PARC. The P is for purpose. So what you want to do is look at the domain suffix. So what that is, when you're looking at a URL for a website, it's the part that comes at the end. Typically, what you're most familiar with is a .com. That is a domain suffix. So depending on the type of domain suffix, that will determine whether or not the website is more likely to be a credible source. So the most trustworthy ones, and it's not always, but usually trustworthy, are .edu, which stands for education, .mil, which stands for military, and .gov, which stands for government. Websites that are not always trustworthy are .com because they're commercial, .org because they're an organization, and .network, which is a network. These are typically the types of websites that are made by everyday human beings like ourselves. So we can create a website and then post up our own URL. That doesn't mean that we're necessarily a reliable source. Whereas someone like the government is usually more fact-checked before they post up information. So you still need to judge for yourself, but the first thing you should always look at is that domain suffix. The next thing you want to think about is why someone made this website in the first place. What is this website's purpose? What is it trying to tell you about? So is the purpose of the website to provide information? So in this case, we have the Great Panda on the National Geographic website, where we can learn all about the panda and factual information, such as where it lives. Or is the purpose of the website to entertain? For example, we have this website called The Onion, and their headline reads, World's 22,000 polar bears forced to share last remaining iceberg. If you're not familiar with The Onion tends to be a more sarcastic type of news media outlet. So a lot of times their articles are more far-fetched and for fun. Or is your purpose to sell something, such as going to the Apple website and trying to purchase an iPhone? Or is your purpose to persuade? Is it to change the point of view of someone? Is it to have someone change their mind about a particular topic? So in this case, you have a sports blog where the article reads, the 5 reasons why basketball is the best sport. Some people might really believe that basketball is the best sport, and they would use this article to back up what they believe, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's true for everyone because everyone has a different preference. So pretty much on the internet, you can find articles that back up any opinion that you believe to be true, but the real thing that you have to take into account is this a valid source? So does the website's purpose match your reasons for using the site? So that's something to think about. If you're doing a research paper, you're going to want to look for articles that tend to be more factual, right? Because you're looking for information. How to find out. Does the page appear to be professionally designed? So the first thing you want to look at when you look at a website is how professional does it look? Does it look like someone made it that doesn't really know what they're doing, or does it look more credible? Is the page cluttered with advertising? The more ads you see on the website, the less likely it is to be a good source. Is the writing trying to convince you of someone's opinion? So, are they trying to persuade you one way or the other? Because if they're trying to persuade you, it's more likely to be less credible because they're only going to give you the information that works in their benefit for their side. They're not going to necessarily tell you the opposite opinion, right? And is it one-sided, right? So is there some sort of bias? The A in the PARC test is for author. So we have to think about who created this website, who's the author, and who is the publisher. And then, are the author or publisher experts on the topic? So once you find that person's name, if you look them up, can you tell, are they an expert? Are they qualified to be writing about this? If someone's giving me medical information, are they a doctor? Do they have schooling to back them up with what information they are giving me? Or is it something that they're just making up themselves? So, for example, you have this website called The Evolution, and the title reads, Technological Advances Demand Adaptation from Public Higher Education. Now you have the author is Henry Bienen. You can see that right below the title. And what it says is that he's the President Emeritus of Northwestern University, which is a very prominent college in America. So he's more likely to be a more credible source in that case, talking about education. How do you know if the author is qualified? So what you want to look for is the About Us on the website. So a lot of websites have an About Us section where you can learn more about who are the people involved in that event or campaign or organization. You could also just simply Google the author or the publisher. Nowadays, so much information is out there on the internet about everyone. So you should be able to find information to back up whether or not this person is a credible source. Because if they are a credible source, they probably published other articles or books somewhere out there online, which would make them more credible. If there is no author or publisher, then don't trust the site. Typically, if you can't find who wrote this, then you have no idea who your source is, and they're most likely not somebody valid. So I would not think that what they had wrote is true. Let's move on to the R in PARC. R is for reliability. So, does the information make sense? You should always, always, always be thinking to yourself when you're reading something online or watching something online, does this information make sense? So for example, we have the Pacific Northwest tree octopus, and we want to help save them because they're endangered and they're about to become extinct. If you read the first couple of sentences, so the Pacific Northwest tree octopus can be found in the temperate rainforests of the Olympic Peninsula and the west coast of North America. Their habitat lies on the eastern side of the Olympic Mountain Range, adjacent to Hood Canal. These solitary cephalopods reach an average size of 30 to 33 centimeters, right? So think about what you know about octopi, right? Do octopi typically live in trees? If you think about this logically and use the background information that you have, you would question this website, which should lead you to research more about this. Because what you would find is that that website is not true, right? So you want to always try to confirm the information from another source. Think of this as the rule of 3. What the rule of 3 means is if you find some information on the internet, you should be able to find that same information on more websites. So you should be able to find that same information on a total of at least 3 websites. Rule of 3. Also think about with the author, do they cite their sources? So if they wrote an article, did they tell you where they got that information from in the first place? And wherever they did get that information from, is that a reliable source? Are they trustworthy? So you have to always do your research. You always, always, always have to fact check. Never just simply believe what you read on the internet. Also thinking about, is the website biased? How many sides are represented? A true, valid article usually shows both sides of the story, especially if it's something that is debatable, right? So they would give you both the pros and the cons. That way you can have all the information and you can make up your own mind, as opposed to it being biased, which means it's one-sided and they're only giving you the one side's information. So for example, you have this article by Noisy, and it says the 123 worst musicians of all time, right? So this was written by the Noisy staff. We don't know who they are to start with, right? And this is obviously opinion-based, but it's based on the opinion of people that, one, we don't even know who they are, and two, who's to say that they have the same preferences that we do when it comes to our musical tastes, right? So you can't necessarily go by this article because you don't know where they're getting this information from. Who did they poll? How did they come to these conclusions? The last part of the PARC test is C. C is for currency. And we don't mean currency like money. We're thinking about currency in terms of how current is this website, right? So when was the website published, or when was this article published? You can usually find the date of the website at the bottom of the page. Typically for an article, you find the date of the article was published right underneath the title. Is this information current enough for your topic? So if we're reading about a current event that's happening now, and we find information to back it up from many, many decades ago, is that current enough to really make your opinion valid? How does it add up? Does it make sense? You got to compare your website to needs. Okay? Do they match? Does it match your needs for what you're looking for? And when you're in doubt, ask the instructor or a librarian. So if you're not sure if this is current enough, you should always seek an outside source. It could also be a parent or your teacher. So the big takeaway with current is you want to remember that within 5 to 10 years makes it the most current information and more likely to be true. So there's many things to think about when you're determining the PARC test and how to evaluate a website. So remember, does it have purpose? Is there a credible author? Is the website reliable? And is the article or website current to today's day and time? If it passes all 4 of these factors, then you are most likely able to park yourself on that website and use it.